Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jan Hamer with Weber State University, English department, actually, but I'm a member of the Environmental Issues Committee, so this is pretty near and dear to my heart. It's my great pleasure to introduce Ted Wilson. If you've lived in Utah for as long as I have, you've been hearing about Ted Wilson kind of always. He is a native of Salt Lake City and attended school there, taught economics at Skyline High School for 7 years. This is the most interesting thing in the bio to me. For 4 years, he was a mountaineering park ranger in the Grand Tetons during the summers. That's an accomplishment. A lot of you know him as the former mayor of Salt Lake City from 1975 to 1985. When he finished his term as mayor, he became director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics at the University of Utah and is still affiliated with that fine institution. You know, he's done a lot of other things in the meantime. You know, an educator, a college professor, a politician, but more specific to what we're talking about now, he began in 2008 as a director of the Utah Rivers Council, and then was the senior environmental advisor to Governor Gary Herbert in 2010 to 2011. In September of 2013, he was appointed as director of the Utah Clean Air Partnership, or UCARE, and it's in that capacity that he is speaking to us today. So I give you Ted Wilson.
Well, thank you. My mother, who was very wise, told me never to apologize coming into a speech. So I won't. But I'll tell you, I have two challenges. One is to speak after the last speaker at this podium, Sally Jewell. What an amazing address from a woman as smart as I've ever seen. Now, I'm sure all of you women are too, but that's the political thing in me. I'm sorry. But that was just amazing. I thought her conviction, her ideas, her thoughts resonated with every one of us. As we meet this challenge of sustainability, it's a nice word. I don't know if it really gets to the heart of it. Survival may be closer, but that's a little hard to digest, I think. We are human, we work together, we're optimistic about the future. And you wouldn't be here today unless you were optimistic. And you felt that each one of us has something to offer about a whole range of sustainability issues, whether they're efficiency or water, or resource, or environmental degradation, or global climate warming. Whatever it is, we all need to refresh and think about it and to commit ourselves. So the other challenge I have, the second one, is that I'm not a real PowerPoint guy. I'm kind of old, you know. But they said, you can't do this without PowerPoint. So I rushed off to some people that know how to make these things. So I'm going to do my best up here, you know, with this deal. I think if I press this button, something really magical will happen. No, it didn't. Hey, there we are. The governor is here. Maybe we'll have him speak for a minute. That's magical. Well, what's UCARE? It's an acronym. It means Utah Clean Air Partnership. And it was really born, I think, by the governor and a few people sitting around the old Cracker Barrel up there in the state capitol. And they said, you know, we really need to do something about clean air. And so they put out they grabbed Alan Matheson, who, by the way, will be speaking after I do today. Stick around for Alan, he's just terrific. They said to Alan, who came to the job that I used to have as senior environmental coordinator for the governor, and they said, Alan, you're a planner. You ran Envision Utah for years. We would like to do something to create an institution that begins to deal with important problems regarding air and how people relate to it and what they know about it. And so Alan wrote the plan, and they tried to run it out of the governor's office for a while, but then they realized if they ran it out of the governor's office, it would always just be the governor's. And the governor wanted to step back, create a 501(c) that could raise public money and do this stuff without it looking like it's right under the governor's thumb. And I guarantee it's not right under the governor's thumb. It is an independent working organization now. We certainly want to help the governor do a good job on clean air, and we cooperate and do all of that, but we're very independent, and we work independently. So our mission is to, number one, educate the public on what they can do to deal with the air quality problem. How do we as individuals deal with our automobiles, our spray cans, our paint shops, our printing institutions? How do we deal with our trucking? How do we deal with all the things that we have to create the quality of life that we as Americans enjoy? And to give people ideas on the theory that they will want to do that. And they will want to do that as a volunteer. Now, why do we want to do it as volunteers? Because this is America. We have a great investment in the little idea called liberty. And we've found that prescription is very difficult to use in this country. And it would be a very long time politically before we could say, odd-numbered plates get to drive today, even-numbered plates get to drive tomorrow, and that sort of thing. That's called prescription. It does not work in even the most liberal states in this country. Maybe a little bit in California. Let's give them that credit. But really, it doesn't work very well. So we decided to focus on volunteer activities, what people can do to contribute to better air. The second thing that we wanted and have done is to raise enough money to give it away. And we did. We raised $500,000, and we then gave $350,000 of it last December away to 13 really wonderful, well-qualified organizations working on the problem of bad air. And with that idea comes the idea of partnership. Could we bring the 25 or so organizations that we have a regular partnership with together and meet on a regular basis and work together with them without any attempt to control what they do? And they could be everything from a very hard-nosed advocacy group all the way over to more moderate groups that are working on very quiet problems, maybe with schools and children, whatever that might be, to try to give everyone an opportunity to come to a central place, sit at the table, and share good ideas on what we should be doing and how we should work. We have seen, partly as a result of that, not totally to it, of course, but I think also the phone calls have done it, a huge shift in the attitude of our legislature toward clean air. We're on the cusp right now of somewhere between 15 and 20 bills passing this session with a coalition of Democrats and Republicans in the Clean Air Caucus. And they're working this very day, and every day before now, and every day until the session ends next week, on important legislation. And that legislation will help us do a number of things. It'll help us in research. It will help us in cleaning up school buses. It will help us in providing more grants for businesses that need help in meeting emission standards. It will give us all kinds of stuff to provide a better approach to air quality. So our partnership and a lot of other people envision Utah has been a major part of this. Your organizations have been a major part of it. I'm sure your phone calls, your emails, your letters have done the same thing. So to come together is really an exciting thing, and it's happening right now. So those are the things that are working there. Now, if the miracle continues, look at that. I'm going to be an accomplished speaker before this is over. So this is our website. We use this website to try to give you an opportunity to find out who we are and what we're doing. And we have several areas there, what you can do, an entire list of activities you may want to deal with in your daily life, how you can get to tracks, how you can ride the public transportation system, how you can not idle your car as much, how you can chain your deliveries, how you can take the neighborhood kids to school along with yours to avoid that big pileup of cars around every school in the morning. Whatever you do, the what can you do? Grants and loans, you'll learn about a whole slew of grants and loans. I'll get more into those in a few moments. But things that will assist your business or assist you in the problem of clean air. Partners, I just mentioned the partners. I'll skip about, that's just us. But Air Quality 101, if you would like to know the fundamental stuff about air quality, what the precursors are, where those precursors come from, what PM 2.5 is, what it means, all of the elements are in that particular portion of this on Air Quality 101. So if you're in the air quality business, or you're an advocate, or you're working in it, or you just have an interest as a private citizen, jump on that site. That's really good stuff. And then various tools you can use to implement these strategies. So our attempt here is to, I know that miracle is going to happen again. There it goes. As you join the cause, and I just listed some of those things, but mass transit, carpooling, relearning the joy of a good walk. I mean, I'm a mountain climber, and I'd forgotten that. And now when I ride tracks to work, I have to walk a fair distance to get there, and actually it's become one of the better parts of my day. And if you don't think people watching is interesting on tracks, give it a try. I mean, there are some of the weirdest people you have ever seen. And, you know, a lot of them wear suits like I do. You know, it goes both ways. And those people are looking at me like, boy, you weird. So it's really fun. And I don't know, somebody said it's like riding a bicycle. If you haven't ridden a bicycle since you were 5 or 6 or 7 or 10, try it again. They stay up as long as you keep moving. And so ride your bike, reduce your wood burning. Kelly Carey at the University of Utah has come up with some amazing new statistics on wood burning. 1 hour of wood burning is like a trip in a car from St. George to Salt Lake City in terms of pollution. 1 hour of wood burning is worth 4 large diesel trucks running for an hour. So wood burning is considered to be low-hanging fruit. What does that mean? It means we need to target wood burning and help people convert over to gas, or at least not burn on inversion days. A little easier to burn when the air is okay and we have circulation, but even then you'll probably affect your neighbors with it, even though it might be clean air, and it can be devastating in neighborhoods. So if you smell that wood burning, you've got a neighbor that's actually contributing to the entire neighborhood problem. And also those who are sole sourcers who only have heat from wood, and to try to replace those stoves with gas lines and other things. So that's a good thing. And then chaining your errands, go Saturday, instead of going on an errand at 9 o'clock and one at 1 and one at 4, try to do them all at the same time. Your car, after it heats up, is very efficient, doesn't put out much in terms of pollution, and it will sit there for 20 to 30 minutes and wait for you to get out of the grocery store, to get ready to go to the cleaners, to ready to go pick up your son at the movie theater. All those things you can do in sequence. And you can only have one cold start. It's a cold start that's killing your car and killing the air. And if you just let that car idle for 15 seconds, that's all it needs to get its oil pressure up so your engine's okay, then take off, and within 2 minutes, your car will be up to a catalytic converter level that will clean up the air immeasurably. And then idle as little as possible. I live in a very liberal neighborhood of Salt Lake City. It's the only kind of place I would be comfortable in. It's slightly left of Eugene, Oregon. And I got all these people, you know, I mean, they're really enviros, you know. They do everything right. But I go out on my dog walk the other morning when I go out with my dog, and I was walking through the neighborhood. It was one of those cold inversion mornings, and 7 of my enviro neighbors had their cars out getting cozy for them so that when they got in, it was nice and warm. What do I do about that? I mean, they'll run me out of the neighborhood if I tell them that's a problem. So I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. But there's an old guy that lives a couple of houses away from me, and he burns a fire all the time. And I decided I would take action. He's 91 years old, and I would inform him that that's not good for the neighborhood. But then I thought, wait a minute, he's such a good guy. He loans me his tools, and since he's 91, he doesn't care if I bring them back. And so he's just a cool guy. And so I didn't know what to do, so I did the chicken thing. I got 3 brochures that said wood burning is disastrous. And I put them on the house on each side of his, and then put it on his porch, making him think it was a general release and wasn't targeted at him. He quit doing it. I think he's still alive. Maybe that's why he's not doing it. But anyway, okay. Sometimes I get a little nuts. I apologize for that. By the way, I was thinking the other day, do they regulate crematoriums, I wondered? I mean, that's got to be a source of pollution, doesn't it? I mean, come on. And I thought, well, we could at least call it post-mortem 2.5. Okay, I'm sorry. Where am I? Okay, here's a big question. Will people really do it? Or is it so handy and convenient to let other people do it? When we first polled to get the track system installed, I was part of that movement. We ran a poll, and it said 70% of the public in Salt Lake County was willing to put a percent of their money up for transit. I think it was 1/4 cent on the sales tax. And we thought that was terrific news until as we began to ask people why they would do that, the principal answer from 40% of them was, so other people will use the transit system so the freeways won't be as crowded when I drive to work. And that was kind of discouraging because it kind of showed us the fact that these are easy things to get around. Nobody knows what you do with your car during the day, how often you use it, where you drive, whether you idle. Nobody's following you around. So will people really respond in terms of will they work and do the thing they ought to do about air quality? Well, I, for one, believe they will. And I believe that because there have been other times in our past that we've been tried, and we have gathered together and we have dealt with it. One was the Olympics in 2002. I was on a committee that met with the Olympic organizers, and Mitt Romney came to a meeting one day and told us all that he was having trouble finding enough jobs for volunteers. They were at that point 12,000 applicants over of people volunteering to serve the Olympic Games. And these were not all sexy jobs. People were taking jobs standing out in the cold looking at tickets. People were looking at jobs shoveling ice rinks. I mean, this is not all kind of glamorous stuff like you're down there at the bottom of the downhill course or something. This was real tough, hard work. And we had all those people that we couldn't even give a volunteer job. People come together. I was mayor of Salt Lake City in 1983. We had the biggest winter on record, huge snowfall. And we were told early in the game, somewhere in early spring, by our hydrologist for the city, that we would have a flood. So we started preparing for that, but we could never be totally prepared. On May 31st, it was 60 degrees. City Creek Canyon, which is the little canyon just above the city, I think most of you have been there at some point or another, was running at 64 cubic feet a second. That's a cubic foot of water going by a set point in 1 second. That's how much was running. The next day, it was 94 degrees. It went from that level to 320 cubic feet a second. I got a call in the morning from Sidney Fonsbeck, who was one of my council members, who lived over near the canyon. And she said, Ted, we've got a real problem over here. And I drove up there, and water was starting to gush down the canyon over the tops of the banks of the river and so forth and so on. And at that point, we were able to control it, believe it or not, down the North Temple pipeline, but the pipeline began to freeze up. Because of the debris and the silt in the water, it was turning to concrete, basically. And so we could see within a few hours that that pipe would stop and we would flood the western part of the city as well as downtown. So it was Sunday morning, and the people that were working the flood said to me, they said, Mayor, we don't have any way to get the sandbagging done. I mean, we can put firefighters on the street to direct the sandbagging, but we don't have the people power to do it. So I started calling religious leaders. I called the Seventh-day Adventists, and they said, no problem. I called, that's supposed to be kind of a joke, but you guys don't get stuff. I called the, I called the Catholics. I called everybody I could. I was looking at Buddhists, and I called those guys. And finally, I got to the big whopper, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And because I was mayor, and I had Gordon B. Hinckley's phone number. So I dialed it, and I actually got him at home. And I said, President Hinckley, I've got to have 5,000 people. He said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, I need you to get them out of church. And he said, out of church? I said, yeah, I got to get them out of church. If they're in church, you got to dismiss your churches, and you got to send them down to the street. And President Hinckley said to me, well, that's a tall order, Ted. We don't shut down the churches very often on a Sunday. And I said, well, I understand, sir, but he was reluctant. So I pulled out my big argument. I said, President, you know where the water comes out of City Creek and it goes around that corner on 2nd Avenue? And then we got to take the water down State Street. It's going to wind up in your basement at 50 East South Temple, and it will ruin your computers. Oh, now I have an interest. I had 10,000 people within an hour. And I thought, and later in the day, I'll thank me for getting them out of church. But it was still an amazing event to see people coming out and doing their deal. Time magazine ran a big story on the flood of Salt Lake, and they showed a line of sandbaggers. And in the middle of the line is a young woman in a wheelchair, grabbing the sandbag, passing it off. That's what we need. And we need to get this issue of air quality across to everybody so that every one of us just feels really guilty if we're not doing some small part of it. And that's your job. You're the people here today. You're the few that are learning from the inside out. And that's your job, to figure out a way to get a group of people, whether it's your, you know, the group you go have dinner with, or whether it's some kind of maybe some of you guys have poker games, I don't care what you do, but use those events to get people more and more concerned. Now, how are we doing this? Well, we're doing it now through several groups of people, and I hope skip over that one, that's not very interesting. I'll come back to that one. See, I told you I'd get out of sync with these things. But we sincerely need to do this. Now, who's doing it now? I think they come in a couple of categories. One is government. Government has a huge job in regulating the environment. And in the case of air, the Division of Air Quality at the Department of Environmental Quality has some of the best scientists in the country working for them. And I'm officed out there, and I see these people working every day, and I've been in government for a very long time. These are efficient, smart, excellent people. They need a couple of things. They need more money from the legislatures, some of which they will get this year. And we need state law that goes beyond EPA law so that we can customize our air quality laws to meet the standards that is created by this very unique environment of mountains and ranges that we have in Utah. So that's very, very important. So we have government. We have advocates. I think of people like Dr. Brian Mensch. I think of Sharice Udell of Moms for a Clean Environment. These people are kind of hard-nosed. And they're pushing Kennecott, and they're pushing Stericycle, and they're pushing the refineries, and they're pushing anybody they know out there running a business mostly with clean air. Now, do I agree with them all the time? I do not at all. Sometimes they're very strident. But I give them great credit for moving the needle on concern. I went to that rally. How many of you went to that air quality rally, by the way? Look at that. That's amazing that in this group we'd have so many hands. And we had, I think, somewhere around 5,000 people up there. I didn't count them, but that's what I was told by reputable sources. And I thought it was just my environmental buddies, you know, all the guys in Levi's with holes in them, and you know what I'm talking about. It was not. It was young families, mainly, people who were deeply concerned about air quality. So the advocates are moving the needle. And we give them credit because they do a good job of it. Government and advocates and industry are sometimes in a collision point. The advocates are arguing right now that the 11% figure attributed to industry is not enough. It ought to be higher, and there ought to be more regulation. Well, fair enough. I'm willing to say it's not 11%, I'll say it's 20%. I'll give them 30%. That still leaves 70% of the people that we have to deal with. Because this is a war, and you don't fight a war on one front. You fight it on all fronts, use the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force to get it done. So partnership here is critical, an understanding of each other's roles, so the politics is straight, so that our politicians know where the angles are coming from, and they begin to respond. That's the basic thing that American government and Utah government is built on. And don't ever get the idea that because somebody's a conservative Republican, that they're against this stuff. One of the most conservative guys I know, Brad D. from this county, is working very hard on air quality issues this term. And I know a bunch of other conservatives are. And the Democrats, bless their soul, they were there first, but they're doing their job too. So this does not need to be a partisan deal. So that's sort of my pep talk on working together. There is a tension sometimes between these groups, but I think we deal with the tension. The tension can be productive, and it can help us, but we quit biting each other, we quit yelling at each other, and we find the civil dialogue that we need to really get things taken care of. We have a bad example in Washington. We don't need to follow that example because out here in the hinterlands, we learned to team up a long time ago. I want to talk about grants for a minute because they're very important to what UCARE is doing. And to try to give people assistance, we have been working with the Department of Workforce Services. They just gave us $300,000 until this coming July 1, and then they will give us $1 million over the next fiscal year from July to July 2015. And that money will go to businesses that are having trouble meeting emission standards to do two things: to clean up the air and to save jobs. Many of these businesses, like the paint shops, are meeting July 1 deadlines, and they have to be cleaned up or they get fined, they get their permits pulled away. So we're out there working with those businesses right now. It could be print shops, it could be paint establishments, any form of volatile organic compounds, which many businesses entail, are eligible for this particular grant. So if you know a business, a small business, refer them to our website, ucare.org. And Gwen Springmeyer, where is Gwen sitting? But look at this beautiful lady back here in the back. Stand up, Gwen. And Gwen Springmeyer is money bags herself. She will dig you out money for your favorite business to meet air quality standards. You have to be responsible, you have to show a need, and you have to match it dollar for dollar. But it's our way and the government's way, since this is public money, of saying to business, we need to help you out in this process. We also, as I mentioned before, have a smaller grant. I don't know if I mentioned this one, but I will, from the Board of Realtors of the state. And that grant will help people convert from sole source fire burning to either cleaner stoves, EPA approved processing stoves, or to gas, so that people don't have to worry about heating their house in the middle of the winter. So we have additional grants and things of that nature. I think that's about all I got to say today. I could say some other stuff, but it's probably not that important. I think it'd be fun to have you talk a little more. I'd love to hear your comments about what you think we ought to be doing, or what you ought to be doing, or what your bridge club is going to do. Anybody play bridge anymore? I guess not. But whatever, your ski club, or whatever you got going, or your Monday night beer crowd, I don't care. I'd like to hear you with your ideas too. I'd like to make this more of a public forum than just Ted Wilson up here batting his gums, which I've done for a very long time, and I'm sure you're tired of. So what questions do you have? Yes, please stand up and make it loud so everybody can hear it. She asked if we have $25,000 now to abate the wood burning program. Will we give him 50 next year? Absolutely. All right, next. No, I'm just kidding. We well could. You know we love Breathe Utah. I don't know if Aaron is still here, Aaron Mendenhall. I don't know if you guys have met Aaron Mendenhall. I told Aaron after her presentation in the other room this morning that I heard two great women this morning, Aaron Mendenhall and Sally Jewell. They talk alike. They're very bright. Aaron is now a city council member in Salt Lake City, and she is working on log burning as part of her work on the council. So I'll do all I can to get that up to 50, all right? Yes, please. Absolutely. The small grant program, and they range, we've given some as high as $50,000. We gave $50,000 to UTA to establish the Ride Clear program, free passes for several weeks that you could get just by going on the website. Once you tap on, you can only use it for 7 days, but it's a way to initiate people learning how to ride tracks or front runner. But let's see, other grants in that program, we gave Provo City money to begin their clean air program in Provo City. The mayor down there is very progressive and has a good program going that we were glad to support. We gave money to a organization that promotes high school debates on clean air. These are small grants. These are not big fancy grants. So if you're running a particular organization, are you? What's the name? Utah State University Center for Civic Engagement. Okay, are you related to that guy behind you there? Do you know him? The great David Bastian. Well, you know, I know Dave very, very well. And I know if you get a grant, it'll be spent wisely, okay? Yeah, we'd love to see your grant next year. Is it centered in Logan? I need more traction in Logan. I need Logan. We haven't been up there as much. I talked to your legislator, Ed, give me Ed's last name again. Yeah, I get Ed the other day, and I said, Ed, I want to come up after the session and sit down with you guys. So, yeah, we'd love to get something out of Logan, so, yep. Any other groups here interested in financing? We'll go organize one. It's the American way. You look at where the money is, and that's where you go. Follow the green ball, okay? What other questions? Yes. This is Salt Lake County, so this. Should I call President Thomas Monson and ask him if he can get 100,000 people to carpool? I actually had a conversation with the governor about that. I don't think I've got enough stripes on my sleeve to call Tom Monson. I'm not mayor anymore. And yeah, and I said to the governor, you ought to talk to Thomas Monson about, I didn't say 100,000, I said 2 million. I want this to be worldwide. Let's not mess around. But anyway, I think President Monson's the kind of guy that would do it. He's a very publicly spirited guy, like Gordon B. Hinckley was. Good idea. I'll check with the governor and see if he's done it. Yes, please. Yes, we've worked very closely with TravelWise. That's a terrific organization. That's UDOT's travel-oriented organization. They have a website that you'll use if you get into the Clear the Air Challenge this summer, which will come up during the ozone period. It's being run by the Salt Lake Chamber, which we also gave some money to for that program. And TravelWise's work on advising motorists and putting things up on the freeway signs that say, good day to limit your driving and things of that nature has been very, very important. And we work with them very, very close. Angela over there is a great guy, and they've worked very hard on this stuff. The other person that's worked really hard is Mayor Becker in Salt Lake, and I think your mayor here in Ogden has done a lot of work on air quality. Your mayor rides a bike every day, and I'm told he rides it in the snow as well as the whatever else is on the ground, and that's to be congratulated. He's leading out in a way that's very, very important. So this stuff is catching on. It really is. Other questions? You're like the school class. You want to get out early, don't you? Yeah, I know. I used to teach school. Yeah. Well, I'm very optimistic. I think we'll come together as Utahns. I've seen it happen. I think about family tragedies. A young peace officer is tragically murdered not long ago. Not just the neighborhood, but hundreds of other people. Police officers from all over the West coming to honor him. Now, we're not dealing with that kind of inspiration here. This is a slower one. This is more grinding away at us. But it is one we can do. And it demands the most of our community. And I wish you well, and thank you for listening to me. And we'll just keep talking and talking. But remember, the buzzword of the day is less talk, more action. Less talk, more action. So I'm going to quit talking. Thank you.